and we will go ahead and get started. I want to say thank you all for being here this evening. My name is Tom McKenzie. Like I said, I'm the Assistant Director of Admission, and I oversee the application and interview process for the School of Medicine at Case Western Reserve University here in Cleveland, Ohio. A good chunk of students come from UCLA every year to enroll in our four-year MD program. We do receive about a little over 8,000 applications a year amongst all three of our programs. Our class size is about 170, so it is a competitive admissions process, but I will go over kind of some tips and tricks to applying, like I mentioned, and I will talk about Case Western and about about 15 to 20% of our student body every year is from the great state of California. So I promise you will be right at home when you come to the great state of Ohio. All right. So we'll go ahead and kind of dive in here. Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine in Cleveland has opened a brand new building. It is a huge medical education facility that is almost 500,000 square feet, very modern, all made of glass. It's a bright, shiny new building that we are so excited to share with the whole pre-med community, medical school, health professions community and world. We have nursing, dental, and PA and the medical school all under the same roof. And we actually have carved out time every Wednesday from 3 to 5 o'clock. We actually have like sessions with all the healthcare professionals, sessions where we can see what the role of a dentist is, what the role of a nurse is, what the role of a PA is. Medicine's a team sport. We are stronger, we learn more when we do things together and collaborate with one another and learn from each other. I will tell you, if you can show teamwork on an application, either in a medical or non-medical setting, that's going to be a huge, huge thing to have on your application. That's going to really serve you well because it's a very collaborative environment, and the field of medicine is a very collaborative career. So now we're collaborating with all the health professions under the same roof, which is really, really great. So couldn't be more excited. We moved in May of 2019. If anyone is ever in the Northeast Ohio, Cleveland area, and you'd like a tour of our facility, happy to provide that. Please reach out. I'll share my email and my contact information at the end of this presentation. But one of the most exciting things at our School of Medicine is our brand new building. It's been a lot of fun. So I just want to talk about AMCAS briefly. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the AMCAS application to medical school. It opens very soon. It actually opens the first week in May 3rd every year. So it's going to be opening here in a couple of weeks. You can submit as early as May 31st. There is no special points by applying at midnight on May 31st. We don't actually see all the applications until the second, third week of July. So as long as you apply in the month of June, early July with AMCAS, you will be just fine. I recommend June, early July AMCAS application, and then I recommend secondary applications in July and August. It'll take about 4 weeks to receive your secondary supplemental application to all the schools that you requested in AMCAS that you wish to apply to. That's how long it takes AMCAS to verify all your information. But you apply to med school 1 year in advance via AMCAS, apply early, and you will have pretty long application here to fill out. So make sure you take your time with it, but apply early and you will be in good shape sometime June, early July. AMCAS calculates a GPA for you. Might be different than what's on the UCLA transcripts. I bet it'll be the same, if not the same, but it will be slightly different. AMCAS does not do any kind of grade replacement. So if you retook a particular course and took a course multiple times, whatever the case may be, there's a chance that those grades were different, perhaps. Both the first and the second attempt are going to be counted. In addition to that, you will also have, if you attended multiple institutions besides UCLA, the undergrad GPA is going to make up all the college credit that you received throughout the entire duration of your undergrad career. So if you transferred schools or attended multiple institutions, all the coursework from that institution is going to count towards your GPA as well. All right. So also, if you took college level courses while a high school student, that's also going to count towards your undergrad GPA. So if you did some kind of post-secondary or dual enrollment, whatever the case may be, so that's also going to count towards your undergrad GPA. So those are kind of the three scenarios where your GPA and AMCAS might be slightly different than what's on your application. So if you took a course multiple times, AMCAS does not do any grade replacement. College level courses while in high school, and if you transferred or attended multiple institutions besides UCLA. Other than that, your GPA should look the same, if not the similar, if not the same than what's on your UCLA transcript. Below is actually a screenshot of everything that we see in AMCAS when a student applies to medical school in a case. AMCAS calculates your total GPA, your BCMP, biology, chemistry, physics, mathematics, and all AO stands for all others besides those subject areas. So a lot of students ask, should I pursue a post-bac or a master's program before I apply to med school? I would say at Case Western, most students do not have a degree besides a bachelor's. They may have taken an additional year after college graduation to do other things, but generally that could or could not involve additional education. I think the average GPA for all students that applied to that matriculated and were admitted to allopathic med school the past year was about a 373, 374. So just over that 3.7 threshold. I always say like 50% or below and above that standard. If you are below maybe a 3.5, 3.4 range, I'd recommend you might consider a post-bac or a master's. Now, you don't have to, but I'd recommend you might consider it, all right? Post-bacs are great. You can fulfill basic prerequisite courses. You can also get some academic redemption. Med schools value a strong upward grade trend. It is kind of a brutal business. What have you done for me lately? That kind of thing. So whether that's an undergrad or in a post-bac program or a master's program, special master's programs are great too. Master's programs are great because you apply to medical school with both a graduate GPA and an undergraduate GPA. A graduate GPA will probably hold a lot more weight because that is the most recent. So definitely keep those things in mind. But 374, 373 is the national average. Case is a 3.82 average. And I'll share these at the end of the presentation as well, all these averages. You don't have to tuck these away and memorize them, all right? But that's a good rule of thumb to shoot for. I would say if you are below that 3.5, especially 3.4 threshold, consider a post-bac or a master's if that's your undergrad GPA in that range, okay? A lot of students ask me what's more important, the GPA or the MCAT. I think they both have a pretty equal importance. I wouldn't say one is more important than the other. I would say it is holistic review. Yes, when you apply for medical school and admissions, a screening committee reviews your application for admission. It is holistic review, but it is also a numbers game as well. And MCAT and GPA are the most important. It's probably going to make up over half of the admissions decision. The other 30 to 40% at least is going to make up your extracurricular activities, things you've done outside the classroom. A lot of students, I get questions all the time. What if I have a really low GPA or I have a lower GPA? Will my extracurriculars save me? They might, depends on your GPA, depends on your involvement in activities. If I have a low GPA, will my high MCAT save me? It could, depends on your MCAT, depends on your GPA. It definitely is a very holistic review process as far as that goes in terms of a scenario and kind of thinking about everything that the application entails. But again, the number one thing is, are you academically prepared for medical school, and have you shown you can handle the academic rigor of med school? Best way to show that is the GPA and the MCAT, all right? One question that just came in now that we're kind of on this topic, one student asks, what if you take community college courses after you graduate? Does the grade for those classes count towards your GPA, or do you have to report all those classes on AMCAS? You report all your coursework at all the institutions that you've attended, whether that's a community college or a four-year institution. All of the undergraduate credit that you received throughout your whole undergraduate career is reported and calculated via AMCAS, and you have to provide documentation to all of that coursework at all the institutions that you apply to. All right, that's a little bit about, I guess, academics. We know MCAT and GPA are important. Got to show that you're academically prepared to handle the rigor of medical school. But what about other things in your application? How else do you enhance your application? You have a huge section called the experiences section. That's the what. What have I done? Like my resume. I can list up to 15 different experiences I've participated in. And then I have the essay. And the essay is the why. So that's why medicine. So I have my experiences, which is the what, and then I have the personal statement, which is the why medicine, right? So that's That's big. You want to share your story. All right. Both are very important. But personal statement, you'll want to share your story in terms of why you want to go to med school and why now. Don't overthink the personal statement. I think it's one piece to a large application, not the most important piece. The best essay does not guarantee an interview. I always say you don't have to like overindulge or have big fancy words with a thesaurus by your side to sound catchy and stand out and all these, whatever phrases that you're like, oh, that sounds really, really good, whatever. Just be true to yourself, excuse me, and share your story. That's the most important thing in the personal statement. It really, really is. All right. And every personal statement is different. Everyone has their own story and journey, but just share why you want to apply to medical school and why now. And yeah, that might include some deep reflections or a reflection on a particular experience you had, but don't reiterate all your experiences into your application personal statement. That's what you have the experiences section for. So don't overthink the personal statement is the moral of the story. Okay, so just for fun, I made a little list here of all the mostly non-medical related experiences that our incoming class participated in this past year at Case Western. Now, I mentioned medicine's a team sport, right? So a lot of these things I find are very solid, like transferable skills to the field of medicine, which is really great. Like we had a chef, a knitter, a dancer, a culinary specialist in the South Korean Army. That was a new one. An Arabic teacher, a cat adoption center volunteer. Okay, the moral of the story is put this stuff on your application. Yeah, medicine's a team sport, and it's also so important to have a life outside of your career. Like varsity athletes, for example. I love it when I see varsity athletes. I know how much time and dedication it takes. Teamwork, working with others, empathy piece. Can I see things from another person's perspective? AKA, can I work with others? Can I listen? All of those are really solid transferable skills and quality to the field of medicine and qualities that medical schools are looking for. If you play an instrument, if you sing, if you dance, all those things are really big as well. I know how much time the arts take. Put this stuff on your application. Sometimes I'll look at an application and I'll think to myself, okay, wow, there's 15 different experiences here, but they're all medical related experiences. All right, is there a life outside of medicine? Gosh, we don't want you to burn out. You haven't even started med school yet, right? So definitely a well-rounded student is important, and being able to show any kind of things you've done in undergrad in terms of leadership, involvement is really, really key as well. It takes years to build a med school application. It really does. Good amount of years sometimes. So get involved outside the classroom if you're just starting out at UCLA, and think about everything you've done if you're getting ready to apply, and hobbies, other interests. Put the stuff on your application because it's really important for us to get to know you and provide some context in some of the things you're involved in. Okay, so what do you really need? Obviously, being well-rounded, being a team player and empathetic is huge. But the number one thing in that experiences section that we're definitely looking for is commitment to medicine. So what does that mean, you ask? Commitment to medicine. Well, patient care experiences is huge. So that includes shadowing. That includes some kind of volunteer or work experience at a hospital or clinical setting. Hospice is great. In-home caregivers. I've seen students apply that are in-home caregivers, EMTs, nursing home volunteers. Do you know what you're getting yourself into when you apply to med school? And do you understand the daily demands and challenges that go into the field of medicine? Research is great. Research also can show commitment to medicine as well. We do not require research to apply to Case. I would say most medical schools do not. If you see a med school that requires significant research or research in general, it's probably more the exception than the norm, but research is also a great way to show commitment to medicine. It doesn't really matter the type of research. This can be research in a lab. This can be clinical experience, clinical research experience, excuse me. This can be any kind of maybe quality improvement research, even DEI research. I mean, all of these things are really, I would say, beneficial to your application. You can list up to 15 different experiences on the AMCAS application. Don't fill out all 15 just to fill out all 15. Quality, way more important than quantity, all right? I interview students every year that have 9 to 10 experiences on their application, or 12 or 11 experiences on their application, and that is just fine. Okay, the future. We had the pandemic, maybe getting over the pandemic. We see that definitely getting better. It changed our world, changed medicine, changed healthcare. It also changed the med school admissions process. And what I mean by that is, like, this is a perfect example. You know, in 2018, pre-pandemic, I traveled to UCLA and attended the pre-health and career fair that took place right on campus. And you know, this was before the days, it's kind of crazy, not that Zoom didn't exist, but it was before the days of a lot of webinars just like this, where students can log on from the comfort of their homes and wherever they are on campus, perhaps, or off campus, and they can get some information, and none of us have to travel anywhere, which has some benefits too. So I would guess the moral of the story for that one is I would get used to interviewing on Zoom and having med school interviews on Zoom, and other health professions, perhaps. I think if you see a medical school that's not interviewing virtually, it's going to be more the exception than the norm. We also have what we call an optional COVID-19 essay in our secondary application. Many med schools have an optional COVID-19 essay, and what that essay entails is it's a essay that we like our students to reflect, our applicants to reflect on the pandemic, how it impacted you. You know, think back to 2020, 2021. You know, how did the pandemic impact you? And in addition to that, did you have an experience in 2020 that was halted, canceled, interrupted? Like, we want to know everything. So please, please let us know, you know, what maybe could have been, or what particular experiences were halted, canceled, or interrupted as a result of the pandemic. The past several years and over the next couple of years going forward, you know, medical schools have to be forgiving to a certain extent. I mean, we do understand there is a reality. Yeah, it wasn't really possible to obtain medical related experiences for part of your undergrad years, perhaps. So it's very important that we understand that, and that we take that into consideration when reviewing applications. All right. So hope that makes sense, and definitely reflect on the pandemic. And if you had a virtual experience, if you had a virtual shadowing or scribing experience, anything at all that was virtual, that's going to hold a pretty equal weight if it occurred, especially in 2020 and 2021. Gap years are very popular at Case. Over 3/4 of our students had at least 1 year between college graduation and matriculation to med school. I always say non-traditional is in fact the new traditional when applying to medical school. So please, definitely, when in doubt, consider a gap year. I almost consider it, think how much self-growth happens in a year, right? And it also, I want to say it's not like we're looking for all these specific experiences you got to have on your gap year. As long as you are doing something productive and something that you're enjoying and that you're learning from, it doesn't even have to be a medical related experience. That is great. Students have done Teach for America, AmeriCorps, Peace Corps. There are so many different opportunities you can do on a gap, or even just working in some kind of service or non-medical related career for pay. That's a level of reality. All got to make some money to help finance our medical and college education, right? So that's very reasonable and expected oftentimes as well. But again, gap years are great. I would almost compare it to like a job interview, right? If you're interviewing for a job and someone else is interviewing for the same job with a year or more, or 3 to 5 years of more experience than you, it just could be tougher to beat that individual for the job, so to speak. Doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means it might be a little tougher. So yeah, non-traditional is the new traditional. When in doubt, take a gap year. So hope that was helpful. A little bit about applying to med school and some tips and tricks. Med school application to AMCAS. All the allopathic med schools around AMCAS opens 1 year in advance, first week in May every year. So if you're applying this coming year in 2023, you'll matriculate in 2024. The earliest you can apply is May of your junior year, because then at that time, you'll be graduated a year later, and then start in July or August that summer after graduation. All right. Cleveland, Ohio. So the sunsets are beautiful. We are right on the water. Okay, no, it's not the Santa Monica Pier of LA, but it's still a beautiful, beautiful place to live, grow, develop as a professional, I promise. And like I mentioned, 15 to 20% of applicants every year, and at 15, 20% at least of matriculants every year that come to Case are from the great state of California. And UCLA, Southern Cal is very, very popular. Cleveland, Ohio has a ton to offer. It has everything a big city offers, 3 professional sports teams, largest theater district in the entire country outside of New York. It also has that smaller town kind of charm to it. The Northeast Ohio metro area is over 1 million individuals, and the population of Cleveland is almost 400,000 residents. So you have a very large scope city and a very diverse city. And you also have a very strong healthcare hub. The Case Western campus is in the cultural hub of the city, a few miles east of downtown Cleveland. But the biggest, I would say, draw to cases in Cleveland are definitely our hospitals. And I'll talk about those in one second, but Allopathic Med School, founded in 1843, we have one of the largest biomedical research institutes in the United States as well. And also, 3 distinct MD programs. I represent the university program, which is the most popular, but I'll talk about 2 other options you'll have for yourself as well. Okay, teaching hospitals. Very diverse patient population. You're going to see it in the city of Cleveland. Cleveland Clinic is probably the most well-known brand outside of the Northeast Ohio region, has its own zip code. Cleveland Clinic is Ohio's largest employer. We also have the 3rd largest veterans hospital, 3rd largest VA hospital, Cleveland, Ohio, fun fact. And also government-run healthcare, very different patient population, not a lot of insurance companies, kind of gives you healthcare through sort of a different spectrum. University Hospitals is a classic teaching hospital that is the 5th or 6th largest employer in the state. And the Metro Health Medical Center is also a brand new campus that was built, manages our Life Flight system, and there's a Pride Clinic. There is a Spanish-speaking clinic. There's even, fun fact, a Cleveland Public High School. A high school is physically located inside the hospital. Metro might be the only hospital in the United States that has a hospital physically located in the, or a high school, excuse me, physically located in the hospital. You're going to see a very diverse patient population. And the nice feedback that I do get every year from students that, that come from Boston, New York, LA, Chicago, we're one of the few allopathic med schools in the region. You don't have so many med schools in the city with so many medical students as a result vying for however many spots in the hospitals. You can really train where you'd like in Cleveland and when you're a student at Case, and that is a big, big draw. You're going to see 3 or 4 very different hospital systems with a very diverse patient population. The medical scientist training program is the MD PhD. It's 8 years to complete. That's right, 8 years. And it's an 11 to 14 student a year program, all funded by the NIH. A lot of dedication in an MD PhD. Research is significant research is required. Probably want to have an application that's about 80% research and 20% on the patient care side. And then the Cleveland Clinic Lerner College of Medicine, 32 students per class, 5-year MD, completely tuition-free, which of course is a nice benefit, but also smaller as well. It's a 5-year MD. 1 year is an entire research block, all right? And 1 year is straight research. And you also will need research to apply to this program as well. 50% will be, I would say, research focused. The other 50% would be patient care focused. And then the university program is 170 students per class. Research is not required to apply to this program. I would say about 75 to 80% at least of our student body every year, if not more, has research. But the curriculum in the university program, our most popular program that I represent, is 50% small group, 50% case-based learning. In the Lerner College of Medicine, just one quick note, your diploma still says Case Western. It is a Case Western program. It's all just ran through the Cleveland Clinic. A lot more similarities than differences between the Lerner College of Medicine and the university program. The only differences really are the longer research period with that additional year as well. Okay, so this is a screenshot of what what the first 2 years of medical school at Case look like. Little different than the undergrad or grad level. You don't have a list of courses with course descriptions. The curriculum is divided into 6 different blocks. Complete pass-fail grade system the first 2 years. That's pretty common among med schools in the United States. But the becoming a doctor block is 5 weeks. The rest of the blocks are 11 to 14 weeks. Big picture items in block 1, public health type things, social determinants in health, healthcare disparities, things of that nature. And you're then going to be divided, starting when you begin as a student, into case inquiry teams. So that is teams of 8 students and 1 faculty facilitator. And you will, in your team, evaluate 2 patient cases every week. Some of the cases may be very elaborate. Could include MRI findings or some CT scans or some lab results or like emergency room findings, things like that. And students go through these patient cases and they talk about everything they know and everything they don't know, right? And students will work together to create a set of learning objectives, which are about 10 to 15 different essay questions that they take away from a particular patient case and situation. It's really a pretty fascinating way of learning. And the goal is to get you how to ask the right questions and think like a physician those first 2 years. A good rule of thumb, it's important to know what you know about a particular patient, but it's more important to know what you don't know. What don't we know about this particular patient case and situation? The required summer research is a 12-week block that occurs between years 1 and 2. And that is when you will complete your research block and for the School of Medicine. Everybody will graduate with research experience at the MD level when they apply to residency, which is great. This is a typical screenshot of what a day in the life looks like of a Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine student. And you have your IQ teams, which is every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, your case inquiry teams. You switch the IQ teams every block, 8 students. And then you have the opportunity to get involved in some pathways, which is sort of like a minor or a certificate program at the undergrad or graduate level, except in med school. Some students will do dual degrees, not many, maybe about 5 to 7% of the class. You're in class, a grand total your first 2 years, about 20-ish to 25 hours a week. So it's a good chunk of time, but it's also not like an insane amount of time. It's not a full-time job in terms of the amount of time you're in class. Med school is a full-time job and more, but the amount of time you're in class is really from 8 to noon every day. So you really have a lot of flexibility in terms of, yeah, I'm done at noon most days. So not a lot to ask in terms of being in the classroom. I will tell you, yeah, there's going to be days where it will be challenging, and med school is a full-time job and more. But if you are highly disciplined, you have strong independence, there's a lot of flexibility in the curriculum where you can be involved in a wide variety of different things. And I think it helps avoid burnout quite a bit. And there's, with the flexibility in the curriculum, I think it also won't be the deepest, darkest years of your life as well in terms of how it's structured. You do have the collaborative practice from 3 to 5 every Wednesday with the rest of the health professions, but there's a lot of things you can get involved in your first 2 years. The gross anatomy, radiology, and living anatomy curriculum, the GARLA, and the hollow anatomy is probably one of the most exciting things happening at the School of Medicine right now. In our brand new building, we have a huge digital anatomy suite on the 2nd floor. And you're also going to have hollow anatomy glasses where, like, you put on the glasses, I see you see me, we see everything in the room, and digital content is inserted into the room as if it's actually there. It's a pretty surreal experience to be involved in the hollow anatomy experience. So part of the anatomy is taught digitally. Check out YouTube, Google if you haven't heard of this. There is dissection still. We teach this in conjunction with dissection. We have a 2-week boot camp right after block 1 of nothing but anatomy for 2 weeks. And once you do nothing but anatomy for 2 weeks, you'll start having anatomy on about a weekly basis beginning in block 2. And that's when the GARLA curriculum will begin, and you'll be learning anatomy digitally. It's really incredible because you can see everything you can see in dissection when you're doing hollow anatomy in augmented reality. You can stick your head up and see, like, inside the chest cavity and the diaphragm and how the lungs move and all of that. Really just an incredible experience. So check that out, but it's really exciting to be a part of the community with the hollow anatomy. Very unique to Case. Okay, stats. Total applications nationally, total applications to CWRU amongst all 3 of our programs, and there's the breakdown. Traditionally, we will admit about 425 to 440 students every year at the School of Medicine. And about 60% of the students will decline that offer. So about 170 students will matriculate. With the learner program, it's about a 50% yield. So they'll have to make a little over 60 offers generally. The MSTP program is around that same-ish. So that number of matriculants is you could probably about double that oftentimes due to the number of offers that need to make in terms of the number of students that end up matriculating. All right. So yeah, this year for our university program, over half the students that interview did get admitted. So you can see the breakdown: 797 interviews, 7,345 applications. In terms of some stats, pulled some interesting facts here. 206 different colleges and universities for students that we interviewed, 41 different states. Wide GPA and MCAT range. I know GPA and MCAT is the name of the game. I kind of was thinking that's going to be kind of talking. Yeah, that is half the decision for the most part. Now, it's not the whole decision, but it is the largest piece of the decision. So you definitely have to think about those things when you are applying to med school. But look at that range. So it is holistic review, and but it is also a numbers game at the same time. And you can see accepted applicants, what that range, looks like as well. This is matriculants last year from all the states in the United States. Ohio finally beat out California for one of the first times ever, I think. It always seems like it's California that wins the top spot, but they're still heavily represented, as you can see, as is the rest of the United States, East Coast, West Coast. Chicagoland, University of Michigan, even parts of Florida are pretty heavily represented amongst our class as well. 97 different colleges and universities matriculated. You can see UCLA is up on the list near the top. UC Berkeley, UCLA, Hopkins, Case Western, and University of Michigan seem to always duke it out for the top position, but Ohio State and Cornell emerged from the ashes this year and surprised us all. So you can see that it's a very geographically diverse class with many, many institutions represented. The average GPA at Case is a 3.82. Like I mentioned previously, the national average is a 3.74. And then the average science GPA at Case is a 3.78, with the national average being a 3.67. So you can see range, median, mode. And again, 50% or below and above these thresholds for 3.74 across all med school acceptances in the United States. And then 3.82, 50% or below and above that threshold as well. The national average on the MCAT is a 5.12. Our median MCAT is a 5.18. 50% are below and above that standard. This is last year's class that matriculated to Case Western. You can see the range of the MCAT as well as the median, the mode, and how that compares to the national average. If you have an MCAT score that is below the national average, I would recommend you consider retaking the MCAT. You don't have to, but I'd recommend you consider it. Multiple MCAT attempts are fine. I would not go any more than 3 times on the MCAT. I think more than 3 times could reflect negatively on your application. And schools take your most recent MCAT score, not your highest, your most recent. So Case Western is going to look at the most recent score when evaluating. So keep that in mind as well. All right. But again, 50% or below and above that 5.18 threshold at Case. So it is holistic review. Yes. It is also a numbers game at the same time. If you do apply to medical school across the United States with an MCAT below the national average, yeah, you can still get in. 50% of students below a 5.12 do, but it just is definitely a little tougher. So keep that in mind. All right, sum it all up. Commitment to medicine, patient care experiences, either experiences caring for a patient yourself or patient care exposure, shadowing, scribing, mentioned a bunch of other examples if you recall as well, but that's huge. Do you know what you're getting yourself into in terms of applying to medical school and patient care experiences? And research is great as well to show that commitment to medicine. And also empathy, teamwork, right? Medicine's a team sport. I know I mentioned that again and again. How you going to do working with others, and also overall well-rounded student. We want to know everything about you. A med school interview isn't a setting where you're going to get quizzed on all these different science terms and all that. We just want to get to know you. Why do you want to go to med school, and why now at this point in your life? Try to value the journey. I know this is stressful. I can't imagine, but be focused on embracing the journey instead of just being fixated on the destination. Try to enjoy some of these moments. Like today, when you're hearing about Case in Cleveland and applying to med school, it's exciting, right? So a little scary, but definitely exciting at the same time. All right. So when you apply to AMCAS, you apply early, like I mentioned. In the secondary application, that's where you indicate if I want to apply to Case Western, 4-year MD, Cleveland Clinic Learner College of Medicine, 5-year MD, and the Medical Sciences Training Program, 8-year MSTP program. You can apply to all 3, get accepted to all 3. You can apply to 2, get accepted to 1. You indicate on the secondary application which of the 3 programs you want to apply to. If you haven't already, download our podcast. It's free. My boss, Christian Essman, interviews med school admissions deans across the United States. He has a lot of fun doing it. I've learned so much. We all have in our office. The podcast is a lot of fun and really a plethora of information to the pre-med community. Instagram and Twitter are all our latest updates, so feel free to post or feel free to follow us there and check us out on Instagram and Twitter. It's just at CaseMedAdmiss on Twitter and CaseMedAdmissions, all one word, on Instagram. And there is my email address. So if anyone has questions about Case, applying to med school, please reach out via email. I love helping students get into med school. Anyone's in the Cleveland area and wants a tour, I'm happy to provide that as well. And I will share this recording as well. And if anyone wants the recording, feel free to just shoot me an email and I'm happy to provide that to you. Okay. Last 2 pieces of advice before I turn it over for final questions. The first piece of advice I'm going to share. Talk up the med schools that you're applying to. If you're getting ready to apply to med school, all right, and you're thinking, okay, I'm going to apply to Case or I'm going to apply to this school, you know, we have an optional essay in our secondary application in Case, and it just says, excuse me, tell us anything else you want the admissions committee to know about you. I'd say a lot of students don't fill that essay out, but take the extra time. It's an optional essay. I get it. There's enough essays to fill out, but take the extra time and research Case, the curriculum. Like mention me by name. Say I was on a webinar with Tom McKenzie through UCLA and I was really intrigued. I learned a lot. And gosh, I was just saw the patient population of Cleveland. I looked up the curriculum at Case. I was really, really excited. Like that can set the tone for a good interview. I open every admissions interview with, how did Case get on your radar? I always ask that. So always the first question I ask. You know, a good response is, heck yeah, I was on a webinar with Tom McKenzie actually, and I was really intrigued. I jumped online. Oh my gosh, I know Tom. That can set the tone, right? Good first impression can flow easily when you first start out, which is big. The other piece of advice I'll share is don't hesitate to apply to Doctor of Osteopathic Medicine. Obviously, it is a separate application service similar to AMCAS, but it's more common, I almost feel now, for students to apply to both MD and DO instead of just one or the other. Again, ultimate goal is to get you into med school. You want to cast a wide net. And if you apply both MD and DO, you can definitely do that. All right. Will certainly increase your odds, so to speak. So I hope this has been helpful. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to questions now. Question here coming in, is clinical research or experience in a foreign country acceptable in med school applications? Yes, we have had students complete research in other countries before. We would really like for students to have medical related experience in the United States. We just don't want all of your medical related experiences in terms of research, patient care, and everything else to be in other countries. The US healthcare system is going to be different from many other countries in the world. So we definitely want you to have that experience in the United States. But yes, clinical experience in a foreign country is certainly acceptable. That is a great way to show commitment to the field. Absolutely. Another question, is it a red flag if an applicant takes community college courses after they've graduated with a stellar GPA? You know, I don't want to say it's a red flag. I will say, you know, we prefer that at Case, and I can't speak for every school, of course, but I bet at Case, and this is pretty common, we probably prefer that your prerequisite coursework is taken at a 4-year institution in the classroom. Now, if you had a couple of classes from a community college or a handful of classes from a community college, that's fine. But if like a good chunk of your prerequisites or all your prerequisites are done at a community college, that probably isn't something that we prefer. It might not prohibit you, it's not going to prohibit you from applying a Case, but we prefer it's at a 4-year institution. So I hope that helps. All right. Well, good questions. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording here. I just want to say thank you again. Please email me and I'm happy to provide it to you.